Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Rugby Through the Leagues podcast. We have actually found one of those rare unicorns as well. English-speaking, Spanish-loving rugby fan here. Bumped into him over at the Ireland Day game alongside Keith, and we've been planning this all the way through the November Internationals, and we're doing this off the back of the World Cup draw. So it's going to come out about a week or so afterwards, but this is a raw reaction to how Spain have done and how we now feel Spain will do at the World Cup, obviously as long as it's based on current form. So, Senor Huevo, really appreciate your time for joining us. For those that don't understand Senor Huevo, what's your real name again, and who you are, what do you do, and what's the love of the game?
So name's obviously Edward Anderson, although everyone in Spain calls me Edward Stewart.
Perfect.
Because obviously in Spain, your middle name's your actual surname, or Giri.
Giri. Yeah.
Which, for people who don't know, just means foreigner.
Yeah. Or English.
So that's my nickname.
English lout is usually what we get called down here. So
yeah, I've not I've got a flatmate who's from Spain who is Spanish and will defend Benidorm to the death. So I've not done balconing yet, but there's still time, Carl. Yeah. So in terms of just getting into rugby here in Spain, in a kind of not post-pandemic, but the autumn of the pandemic, if you will, in maybe February, March 2021. I'd moved to Madrid. I'd been watching a few games in Santander when Cantabria had two teams in the top division then, which is kind of ridiculous to imagine now. Also, get me to explain things, because I'm talking to you assuming you know these places, which you do, but people listening in, Cantabria might as well be bloody Narnia for some people. So it's in the north of Spain, outside of what was the traditional rugby heartland. So there were signs of growth even 5 years ago. What happened? Well, we know what happened. The pandemic happened. I moved to Madrid, but there were still bits of rugby going on. And the way I kind of discovered rugby in Madrid and what was there was through a sevens tournament that Spain were hosting. You weren't allowed fans in, but you could go as press.
Perfect.
I was desperate to get out of the house and do something anyway. And it's at Cisneros. If anyone's not been to Spain to watch rugby or been to Madrid, to El Central, it's incredible. The second I was there, I could not believe that somewhere that beautiful in the middle of a city that they couldn't touch existed. And since then, I've kind of followed it around, and the Spanish Federation keep giving me press passes, because until you popped up, Carl, they didn't have anyone at press conferences to ask the opposing managers or coaches questions in English. Yeah. So you're doing me out of a job here, mate. But yeah, that's how I've come into it. Yeah, and we've been following it ever since, through the bitterness of a qualification for a World Rugby Cup in France that wasn't. The time before that, when they should have gone and they didn't. People forget this, but if they hadn't been booted out in Japan, the first game at that Rugby World Cup would have been Japan versus Spain.
Awesome.
Because Japan played Russia, and Russia were the team who replaced us. So it's like Spain have always been there, and now it's just nice that, well, people like you and hopefully a few more people who are trying to give it the publicity that it deserves and a bit more awareness about the quality of Spanish rugby. Yeah. And it's getting there. It's getting there, Carl.
Exactly that. And obviously I now sort of fully embrace the weekly updates of the Division d'Honor, the Elite, obviously the Division d'Honor B. We've got the Copa del Rey. We've got plenty of rugby available within Spain that people don't realise the quality that is there. And obviously we've now got the Iberians actually being taken seriously by the Federation, because they obviously, with the centralised contracts, bring in international players back to the top league of Spanish rugby, even though they don't play in there most of the weeks because of the Iberians and obviously November internationals. But
yeah, we can get onto that. But the development is there. Yeah,
exactly. And you can see by the quality of the games and like the score lines, and most leagues, apart from probably Division d'Honor B Group A with Getso at the minute, anyone could win those leagues at certain times. There's larger packs and there's separation, but you've got players that are still playing international level rugby but playing in the second tier in the Division d'Honneur Elite and stuff. And there isn't many. Obviously, you'll go back to England. You'll see in the Championship there's tiers down, but outside France, which has obviously got 4 pro divisions, Spain seems to be one of the quickest growing parts within Europe of actual development of clubs and availability. Because you look at the under 23 model and everything like that as well, is literally some of those could easily flip straight into a first team with no issues, as you've probably seen as well.
Obviously, our bread and butter is the club game, right? And the Division d'Honneur, I think, is a great fun league. We've got genuine competitive now. There's problems with it. Is it too concentrated in Madrid and Valladolid? Maybe, but there's strength in that nucleus there. And what people might not be aware is we had a cup final in May for the Spanish Rugby Cup final. Okay, not big, whatever. There's 20,000 people there. Like, people are now losing their minds about, Newcastle have got 9,000 fans now. Isn't it fantastic? Yeah, you've got a global conglomerate behind you with hundreds of millions of pounds. You've got 8,000. Spanish rugby, outside of the Sevens program, it's not run down the back of the sofa. It's run by a lot of hardworking sponsors, but there's not huge money in this. To get 20,000 people, the market's there. It's not just one-offs now. But what Spain's always lacked is the exposure. I think your point about the under-23s is true. Spain qualified for the under-20s when they got through in the Sevens. Kind of anywhere that Spain is allowed to reach their natural level, their natural level is the top tier. And we look at the under-18s who beat Georgia in November as well. I think that may be the biggest result of November, actually, to be fair. Never mind, England so close to winning, Fiji running them to the last minute. But in that under-18s team who beat Georgia, there was 8 lads playing in France. So Spain might have the kind of perfect model of a product now where maybe in the past we talked about how can we professionalize the league. Definitely there's things that can be done on infrastructure, but the Argentinian model looks every year more and more likely for Spain. A great quality semi-professional game that really keeps hold of that tradition, but a clear pathway now for boys to be like, well, if you're good enough, the Spanish league is the proving ground, and then you go and get your contract in France.
Well, obviously I had the pleasure of sitting down with Mario Picardi as well before he moved over to over to France, and he obviously explained the situation being in England, obviously Wasps, then obviously ending back at Alcobendas, the opportunity to go and still be dabbling your toe even in the third tier of France with the option to get to the Pro de Deux was a big draw. But I believe if the Division d'Honneur carries on the way it's going, that draw for those players that are still looking in the second and third tier of French rugby, they're going to want to come and play back in the top tier of Spain. And there's going to be other options for other nations, other Rugby Europe options there. There's enough players out there that are still able to play at a level now, this season, and obviously in the future as it grows. I think it's only good for Europe as well as that. And as we know, the Spanish issue with French availability, the more players we keep in Spain, the better.
Yeah, I think it's that kind of vicious and virtuous circle, right? I remember doing a piece for Rugby Journal a couple of years back when we were at Alcobendas, taking some photos with Nacho Hernandez, fantastic photographer in general, but also for Spanish rugby. We were speaking there and they were talking about historically, we've all just played at university and then that was that. So they went from uni and then it stayed part-time. Is it a negative that players are in France? Obviously, in a perfect world, give me 50 million quid and I can set up a rugby union team in Zaragoza. We'll get one in Asturias and lads can play. But that virtuous circle of Spain qualifying is going to grow the interest. And I think your point is valid. Not about the top tier. Like, no one's competing with France. in terms of the club game.
No.
And in a way, that's a blessing. I've got no sympathy for people in England who whine about lads going over to France.
I can't blame them.
Or the lads maybe from Wales who are going to exodus. It's like you couldn't give a rat's ass when our players were never available for us. So welcome to the new world. And what it has done now is it's given lads that were, as we can see, who were just as good as that under 18s and maybe under 21s, but after that, real life and getting a real job gets in the way. But now there is a pathway for them. So I think it is a negative in not holding them, but now that you can show lads there is a clear pathway, that should change mentalities. And if the focus is on youth development, you're not going to have to worry about the professional contracts. No. Because France will do that for you.
Oh, well, I was obviously when I was speaking to Mario, he's managed to actually get it written into his agreement that he's available for all Spain games.
I think that's going to be way more common.
Yeah, and obviously that was the reason why he explored that, and the option come up, and he bit their hand off and took the opportunity because he's got bigger aspirations, as you saw probably in the episode that I did with him, that he wants to be that captain at the World Cup. He wants to be able to be available for Spain. He wants to be able to be that starting six. He wants to be able to pull that shirt on every opportunity. But there's also massive competition. And I think that's also exciting to see at 10. Obviously, we've got Villanessa, who plays exceptional rugby at times. You've got Bontempo, that's obviously just got a cannon at 12. But then you've got Lucien Richardi, that is hitting a volley for nearly a 50-22 off his left peg. And you think the talent that we've got available as a nation now is who's the next superstar that's coming in behind? Because there is.
Yeah, I mean, we are claiming Spain, but we should, I think. And it's not just, obviously, I was looking at the England game. I've got the squad in front of me. You're talking about Gonzalo Bontiempo, who's played before. He wasn't available in that game, but where is he playing? At Massy. They're in the playoffs of the French third division, right? So, obviously, Joel Merkler, it's unfair. That lad should not be allowed to play against tier 2 nations, genuinely. When I watched him for the first time against Holland for the qualifier last year, right? Or this year.
Yeah,
I honestly can't remember. It feels like a lifetime ago.
The Rugby Europe champion. He was different gravy, absolute animal.
It just needed to win one game now. Again, I'm not a fan of that, but you watched him. And I do mean literally. I know if anyone listens to the Egg Chasers, you can clip this one. He had literally people grabbing his legs, and he was carrying two lads on the floor. You just think, the standard. Yeah. And people say, okay, that's only one player. It's not one player. Alvaro Garcia, who ran holes through England, absolutely punching holes. Where's he? Stade Francais. And coming back to your point about Mario, he's good enough to play now in France, but again, he was on the losing side of a semi-final in Division d'Honneur last year. So if he's good enough to be there now, well, how many other lads are good enough to be there? And as the salary cap hurts other nations like England, because they're not going to be able to compete with France, where are you going to get your other players from? Well, I can think of a market that's relatively untapped. We've got the lying bugger to me, Alejandro Laforga, a.k.a. Chino. I did an interview with him when he was playing for Cisneros a couple of weeks ago. Capped at 15s, really good player. He's playing for free. He's playing for him free at Cisneros. It does amaze me why no one's looking at this league and going, okay, we'll have him, and him. And he's a capped international, so you should be able to get him in. These players should be available at a fraction of the cost. But I don't think, as your point is, I don't think we're far away from people seeing the depth and picking up these players. And again, the fact that Mario could bounce back here and the quality of the Spanish division is sufficient enough now to be seen as a place that you can play to go and get a contract in France, it doesn't hurt.
Oh, no, exactly. And as we've seen firsthand, the amount of players that could probably walk into easily a tier 3 side in France, or obviously you've got other options. Like Wales are going to have to find some other option to field some of these players, because the Welsh internationals aren't going to stay for the last 2 regions. So there's going to be players. Where are they going to go? Where are they going to come to Spain? Or is there an option for them to come and play in the Division d'Honneur? Are they going to be looking trying? Because if they go and fill the boots in tier 2, tier 3 in France, then more players are going to stay here. More players are going to stay in Portugal. And like, I also had the luxury of chatting with Thomas Appleton, the Portuguese captain, and he stayed at Cadul for his career. He did a little bit in England, explored other options, but he'd become a doctor and everything like that. And they managed to look after him by staying there. There's plenty of options for Spanish players probably to do a similar model here.
I think there are, but the geography makes it almost undeniable. Like, with so many good lads playing in the Basque Country, if I'm in San Sebastian or I'm in Bilbao, definitely San Sebastian or in and around that area, they're not living in the city, they're in the countryside, the farmers' boys. You could do that commute in a day to go to France. So I think I've kind of got to a point where I just accept that they're gone.
Agreed.
That you're not going to hold on to that middle tier, but as Argentina showed, you don't have to.
Yeah.
You don't have to. Everyone's going to have to deal with the problem losing players. Wales, as you said, well, it's going to hurt them until they change their model. England are getting hurt by it. They lost Willis, wasn't it? I'm not an English rugby expert, so I don't pretend to be one. But I think they had a lad who was already given a central contract, and he still bounced to France, So I think the difference is, as the depth for teams like England and Wales weakens, because if they're not playing in that country, they're not available. And if you're on that edge of being available for an international, you're just going to leave and go and get guaranteed money. You're just going to leave and get guaranteed money, especially after Wasp go bust, Irish go bust. Whereas Spain, are we going to have more or fewer players who are playing in the top 14 in the next 2 years? Well, I think it's only going one way.
Yeah, agreed. And obviously we've got the depth, we've got the availability of other clubs, but as you said, the geography of the Division d'Honneur is very similar to the way the English Prem set up at the minute. You got the perfect pocket within Madrid and effectively London, and then you've got a couple of clubs obviously up in Valladolid, which is similar to the West Country. Then you got bits that are kind of missed, and the geography doesn't sit. But the way that they're trying to set the new promotion relegation model out, that will settle itself out pretty sharpish as well.
Yeah. So for me, in England, always more of a rugby league fan.
Yeah, fair enough.
Happy to say it. So it always, Spanish rugby always looks more similar to rugby league to me, in having, as you said, these kind of very isolated pockets of intense fandom. Like the fans here in Valladolid are just as passionate as you'd get anywhere else. In fact, even more so, because there's no glamour in getting pissed on in the middle of November in a fan zone that looks like a water park. But they're still there. On the model of 210s, I think, who wants to talk about franchising? No one. Okay, fine. But when you've got a city the size of, say, Zaragoza, which has got 500,000 people, for people who don't know, it's directly in between Barcelona and Madrid, and it's probably going to be, with the available land, with the data centers, it's probably going to be the fastest growing city outside of those two places in Spain. There's almost, I'm not saying there's nothing, but there's no team at that level. As I said before, we lost 2 teams in Cantabria.
You got Phoenix fighting in the Division d'Honneur Elite and doing well, but are they going to be that next level up? Probably not straight away, but they've got a good enough sort of team banging the drum. But as you said, there's normally a couple of teams there. You've got, and as we've seen all the way already through the transfer window, effectively this season, you got players that do well in the Division d'Honneur Elite already snatched and grabbed. One lad got taken from Division d'Honneur B, and he's now playing for Ciencias in the Division de Honor. And you think, hold on a minute, where's that come from?
I think the other reason why I consider it similar more to rugby league is the lack of infrastructure for a lot of teams. The player base is there, but even Barcelona rugby, they're playing in I don't want to say like a park pitch, but it's not far off, and I can't blame any lad. I've not played rugby. You've played rugby, at a higher level, if you will. But, I'm just an ex-football fan. I came from Shropshire. Rugby was not a big thing. Then caught a bit of rugby league. So, and this is why getting to a World Cup, not to bring it back round, but it's so important because of the level of exposure that this could get for the sport. Okay, if it was France, it would have been perfect. Same time zone, easy for fans to go. We'd have been the exciting, colourful team that everyone's talking about. But the fact that Spain qualified and then a week later they were on, what's that bloody TV show called?
It's on that TV.
Man who dresses
TVE or something. And there's
no La Dos. No, I'm talking about the chat show. The chat show, which had about 1 million viewers. Spain's on there doing a mock scrum. In that 1-2 minute clip, that got more coverage for the sport than it's had in 4 years. So qualifying gives the exposure, and it's, how do you look at it? Do you look at it as a chicken or an egg? Okay, those young lads who are playing, you might lose them if you're, say, Zaragoza, but would they be coming, were you more likely to get them if they couldn't get a career in France or if they could? The fact that there is now a pathway should make it a hell of a lot easier to keep hold of these lads till they're adults. Because we used to lose all of these lads, not to rugby, but to another job. Because there was no money in it. But you're holding on to them now. Okay, maybe you're not holding them at your club, but you're holding them within the sport, which is creating that depth. The 210 should work fine. It'll keep it clean. We can come on to why I think maybe the Rugby Europe Super Cup probably is not the way to go anymore. Some of that's TV, and some of that's, I think Spain are just above that level now. But this is your show, Carl. So you lead us.
So I obviously know a few people within Rugby Europe as well, and I don't know if I should be probably saying some of this, but the expiration date...
Just use the word allegedly.
Yeah, so the expiration date of the Rugby Europe Super Cup may not be very long-lived because of how poor it's been viewed. It's not been taken seriously. Obviously, the Black Lions dropped out. Other clubs signed up for a certain period to make it feasible this season. If that doesn't project the way that they've hoped, does that continue? Is it probably best to view that more as a development nations model rather than worrying about the likes of Spain, Portugal and Georgia? Do you leave that sort of to the other nations that won't have the availability of a decent under 20s or under 18s, or have got an option to be? It's effectively an A team, but it's not an A team because you're playing all your main players. The people that I've spoken to, the plan for the Rugby Europe Super Cup from Rugby Europe and from World Rugby, who are funding it, was basically that this has got to be utilised as a development, not you put your strongest team out and then they go and play in the Rugby Europe Championship.
Yeah, and I think maybe Spain are just a victim of timing as well. If Georgia had still been in with the teams you have now, okay, these are I think you could say they're legitimate games.
100%.
But we also have to look at it from a product perspective, right? When were the games played? 6 o'clock in Palencia on Friday. I cannot get to that game. I'm based in Madrid. I'm always probably going to be based in the north of Spain. You're down in the south. So, it's really difficult. Also, the other thing we have to realize is Movistar are not paying for it.
No.
Movistar are covering Division d'Honneur. Right? Which is huge for the game. For people who don't know what Movistar is, think of it kind of as, I would say, Sky Sports in the late 90s, early 2000s. It's largely got most of the sport. Okay, boxing and maybe other things are on DAZN, but Movistar are giving Spanish rugby a game every week on TV as a fixture. And what did we do the first week of the season? Well, none of the best players who are Spanish internationals who play in Spain were available because they were playing in this. Yeah. I think we've just surpassed it, you know, in an honest way, and it happens, you know. I think playing in Division On, as you've said, in terms of the quality of the competition, is better than what they're going to get playing in the Rugby Europe Super Cup. That's a product we can control and we can sell.
Yeah.
Right? You can build a narrative every week through the season, having these boys available, and it becomes a cyclical thing. You know, starting the season with a bang and then having those lads taken out, not great. I can get the argument that it's giving them a kind of professional development. It's bringing those players together. And Pablo Borda, who is the Spanish coach, when he picks his strongest team, they're all coming from France anyway. I don't want to keep going on about France, but it's the kind of, it's the, you know, it's the center of gravity that's drawing everything into it. And I think having a product that we can control, which is Division on it, and making that as good as possible, and actually having a neutral venue for a final, and then saying to lads, go and get your contract in France if you can. I think that's far more long-term viable because it doesn't depend on World Rugby. And we've seen that when World Rugby has to choose between appeasing Tier 1 nations or keeping funding, that we already know the decision that's going to be made.
It's going to America. So, it's going to go to the MLR.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, that's absolutely crazy, isn't it?
Six clubs being held together by 250 million. Great work.
But we also need to remember a portion of that money is not actually going to America. It's going to Tier 1 nations to host games in America, which is doubly bad. Yeah. I mean, I did ask this in the press conference with Pablo today, or if you're listening to this last week, when we've got Argentina in, we've got Uruguay in, we've got Chile in, we've got Spain in. I think that's the most Hispanic teams there's ever been. Don't quote me on that, but I think if it's not a draw, then it's certainly up there. But Argentina v Spain is only the third Hispanic game that has ever taken place at a Rugby World Cup.
Yeah.
That's going to be the only third one. But that's where the growth of the sport is.
100%.
That, like, you can have an amazing competition there in a couple of years. Chile with Uruguay, with Argentina. Okay, if it's an Argentina A team, fine. What I would really love to see is basically a 5-team tournament, and Spain just gets in it. We do it in July, bin off the nations thing. You have Spain, Argentina, play that game in Europe, Chile, Uruguay, Paraguay. You know, that would be incredible. But yeah, I mean, we can come on to that. But I asked Pablo about the kind of Anglosphere centric nature of rugby union, which, okay, it's understandable. It's an empire sport. We get that.
Yeah.
But I don't see how the growth of the game is in the United States. You've put a lot of money into it. You're still putting a lot of money into it. I mean, we can come on to the draw now. Yeah. They're not getting out of that group.
No.
They are not getting out of that group.
No.
They've got, who have they got? Japan, Samoa, France, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gone. You're gone. You know, I mean, they're not even going to make a whisper.
Even with current form, they are dreadful at best. Apart from they actually finally turned up against Georgia. They gave them a bit of a rattle, and then obviously they did that, but it was a very limp reaction to what they had in the Nations Cup. They had a poor run of form going into everything else. But the problem is everyone thinks that America's just going to grab rugby like it has the NFL. And that's going to be the be-all and end-all. We're going to save rugby through... Americans don't... Pardon my French, they don't give a fuck about rugby. Like, they just don't care. And there's a similar situation in Australia. So we're kind of going there off the back of a Lions tour where rugby union's probably about the 5th or 6th sport in Australia. A lot of people that I know went down there didn't even know that what the Lions was. They thought it was something else. They didn't even know it was going on.
You know, I don't want to. We're not going to turn this into a rugby league international podcast because that's even more depressing. Just watching, I know people would have watched the draw.
Yeah,
there wasn't as much of the world rugby there as I thought there'd be. It was okay. Australia's hosting it, fine, but they're talking about one guy was talking about how it created great memories, players for life. Like, we're missing out the elephant in the room. They're just all playing the NRL, boys. Like, you're getting these lads coming in because they'll play for a World Cup and they'll go back. Do you think the NRL gives a rat's ass if Suolihi goes for 2 years? No, because all of that exposure is going to go back to the NRL. It's just they'll go back to the NRL, and then you'll see them maybe 3 years later. Whereas, and your point about the America is true, because if you have a product that's the biggest in the world, why would you trade it? Like, why would India give a rat's ass about football now? They have the biggest cricket product in the world, and it's big enough to be a self-contained market.
Yeah.
There's no need. Likewise, America. I'm not saying it's impossible, but the way their development is set up, which is, I think it's Title IX in America, no? So, obviously in the UK, you've got Bucks Super Rugby, which is becoming a backdoor to other academies for other clubs, and indeed a second academy and a pathway. A fantastically useful product that they could actually grow and, market. Whereas that can't happen in America because all the scholarships are for American football. So where is it going to happen? I'm not against it, but you can't look at those numbers as a rational person and say, but whereas in South America, you already have an elite nation who you can use to help all the others. Yeah. You've already seen it work. You've got local rivalries that you can build. Uruguay v Argentina, Chile v Uruguay. And as all of these nations improve, football's king everywhere. Yeah. Congratulations. Okay, maybe not in Australia, it's the NRL, India cricket, whatever. Yeah. But in rugby nations, if you want, you're competing with football. Yeah. So it's glaring. But as Pablo said in the interview, I asked him, do you think this World Cup will change that mentality? Will, who knows, maybe get people who get paid full-time to cover rugby bothering to learn Spanish? Who knows? But he was very blunt about it. He said, look, the only way that you change that mentality is winning on the field. Yeah. That's it. When Argentina get respect now, before it used to be surprise, now it is a respect. People are slowly turning their mentality from, we've lost to Argentina to, we should lose to Argentina. Yeah. So, it kind of brings us onto the World Cup draw, but winning on the field is going to be the best way to change that narrative.
Yes, I think perfectly timed to get onto the draw. We'll leave our draw till last, shall we? Obviously, Pool C. We'll leave that one till last. We've obviously got what looks like the opening game of the tournament's going to be New Zealand, the Wallabies. Is the highly likely first game. That is a hell of a game to start the tournament with.
Yeah, the World Cup being in Australia, it's going to be a massive game again. Not here to say I'm an expert on either of those teams. Probably know more about Australia because of the amount of NRL players they're bringing in. But and there will be a few more that come in. You've got Lomax, who was going to sign for Rugby 360 in the same way that I was going to marry Scarlett Johansson. Didn't happen. But he could be in there. So the quality of that Australian team, I think this is a point we can make about lots of them. Yeah. The teams that we're looking at now are probably not the teams that we're going to see in 2 years, especially for these kind of middle-ranking nations. But that'll be fantastic. And this World Cup plus the Lions Tour, it is keeping Australian rugby on life support. Yeah. Because they were in a massive black hole financially. Well, yeah. So, I don't want to say it's rigged, but they gave them Hong Kong, the first game, like the first person out of the draw in Australia. I'm like, well done, boys. Like, you are making sure that you are getting there, But that is going to be a huge game to kick off.
And then Chile's in the mix as well with them, aren't they? So
I think for Spain, it's all about the third place teams, isn't it? You don't have to win these games. You just need to steal bonus points. Yeah. That's going to be the tough thing. Do I see Chile getting bonus points off New Zealand?
No.
But if New Zealand get far enough out ahead, are they going to give a rat's ass about conceding 2 tries with 10 minutes to go if they pull their team off? No. For me, it's all about the third place teams. I'm looking at some of these groups looking for favours. Like Ireland, Scotland, they need to do Spain some favours by keeping points away from Uruguay, bonus points. Which group do you think is going to be the closest group in terms of? If I ask you to pick now, who are your top two? That's the hardest to do.
I'll probably sound biased, but I'd honestly say Spain or Fiji. I think that's the only one that's the hardest one to flip for. I honestly think there is a
Georgia, Italy.
No, I don't. I think that's convincingly Italy. That's easily Italy all day long. Romania. We know what Romania offer. Georgia. I honestly don't think they've moved forward. I don't think they've improved outside of the Rugby Europe model. That, like, you put them up against other nations. They got caught out. Obviously, late in the last November international. They should have lost to the USA. They looked pretty terrible against Canada. There's a lot of questions being asked, and there's a lot going on behind the scenes in Georgia, especially with the investigations and the captain being suspended and 6-year bans, etc., etc. There's a lot happening in that nation, and whether we see Georgia where they are currently in 2 years' time, I'm not so sure about that either.
I mean, 2 quick points on that, because obviously we want to get through these groups and then we can bring it all around. But I think that's a cause of not being allowed to progress, right? We saw the crowds when they were playing against Japan. Like, there's only so many years that you can keep playing Spain or battering people in the Rugby Europe Championship, which historically they have done. Now they're going to get even fewer games at that kind of top level. They've lost games for all this bollocks about, I don't know what they're calling it, the Nations Trophy or Nations
Cup or something. Whatever, it's bollocks.
It's just the cartel again, because there's no way you can get promotion relegation.
No. So
it's just so people don't understand how difficult it is to generate that interest. And as an investor, as a sponsor, if Spain have got KPMG have come on board. Not for a lot of money, I wouldn't have thought, but they've come on board.
No.
But if I'm an investor, and we get really good, well, you're fucked anyway. Like, you're not allowed to progress. So I think some of that is stagnation, but it's kind of being designed to do that, which is disappointing. But if Spain can overtake them, it certainly changes the conversation around Six Nations, because we know why Georgia don't get in, because they're not a TV market. If Spain can turn that clock, I think it changes the conversation.
The Six Nations is a sealed shut, never going to happen. Doesn't matter who's there. It's this private boys club. We've bought rights. We've done all this. Unless a massive, massive check is put on the table to offer somebody to step in, which I'm pretty certain Georgia had on the table as well, I can't see it ever happening. Like, the closest we're going to get to a version of the Six Nations is what they've done in football back in England with the Johnston Pate Trophy, where they started allowing Premier League A team clubs.
Yeah, no one's watching that. That's the problem.
Correct, but that's the closest we're going to ever be allowed to a Six Nations with Tier 1 nations involved, with anyone like Spain, Georgia, or anything like that. Because that's why there's conversations that Italy A are going to be allowed to be involved in the Rugby Europe Championships.
I mean, it's just, I can get it. I mean, in a perfect world, I win the Euro Millions and set up a rugby league team in Spain, and then suddenly Spain starts getting Tier 1 internationals.
Exactly. So
historically, that's why France got allowed back into what was then the home nations.
Yeah.
And then the Five Nations. People kind of don't know or don't care to know. France got booted out.
Yeah.
And then rugby league started getting popular in France, and then France were allowed back in. But it's that stupid mentality, because I think I've mentioned this to you before. The day we were in Valladolid to watch that game, I opened my newspaper on Monday after Spain had ran England really close. Back in the newspaper, wall-to-wall coverage, it was the NFL. Why? Because there was an NFL game in Madrid. The idea, there's still that mentality that other nations like Spain or Georgia or even Argentina should be grateful to take part. Whereas Spain, no, they'll just bin you off for the A product. The NFL isn't bringing their C team games. No. They're bringing their real product.
Yeah.
Formula One is bringing their real product. I mean, if Wales keep getting worse, then maybe it can change. But we're still waiting for Spain to win that prove it game.
Yeah.
I think it's legit. I think it's a hope, and it's legitimate not to say anything at the moment. And they are a victim of geography, being in Europe. If they're in South America, the games against Argentina, like a 3-match test series, you'd be printing money, no?
Yeah.
But I don't think I think it's highly unlikely, but when Spain beat Wales in the knockout rounds at the next World Cup in the 16, then who knows? Who knows? Anyway, let's roll it on, Carl. Roll it on for us, man.
I honestly think, though, we've probably got the most favourable draw for a potential second place.
Who else? Maybe Japan. Japan would have been maybe the only team, but it depends how many foreigners that they can bring in.
I think
who are
I think in that group,
nearly eligible.
Japan looked favourable in there anyway. France, Japan. Samoa would probably be the only one if they turn up with a full strength side, and whoever manages to re-allegiance themselves. The same with Tonga. Obviously, Tonga, they might rob seconds because the Vunipola brothers might suddenly pull on a Tonga shirt in 2 years' time. We've got all of these, all these bits, and then what? Jack Willis is potentially going to be able to pull on a shirt for France because he's been out of it.
That would be incredible.
Out of England for so long. So
I hope it. I mean, that would be amazing. No, just
it would. It's unreal.
Thanks to the RFU for running. 3 clubs. Well, was it the RFU or was it Premiership teams running themselves into the ground?
A bit of all of it.
Yeah. Samoa will probably stock up with lads, even if it's lads from the NRL or, as you said, lads switching.
Yeah.
Is that a negative? Is that a positive? For the tournament itself, it's probably a positive to have competitive games. In terms of development, is it a positive? No, because they're on sabbatical. They are on sabbatical. Whereas this is why, again, South America, you can get these lads in and they're not going anywhere. They're not going to hop it back to the NRL in 2 years' time. I mean, who are your 4 to go through? That's the question I want to ask you. So I'm not fussed about your top 2 unless you've got some surprises in there. You're saying Italy have nailed on against Georgia, but we know that 4 teams who finish in the top 3 are going through. If you had to pick 4 now, who would you have?
I think Uruguay are a banker to finish 3rd in their group.
Get enough points to qualify?
Yeah. Yeah, I think they do. I think they've already beaten Portugal. Portugal were in full rebuild mode. That's not going to suddenly change by the World Cup. I think they run Scotland close.
So disappointing. Isn't it?
Yeah, I see them running Scotland closer than probably Scotland would hope. And then Scotland-Ireland's going to be a big one to decide how that goes. That could go however way. Chile are going to get themselves through in 3rd quite comfortably, probably with a big win over Hong Kong, China. That will obviously make them fairly comfortable.
Ooh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, Chile.
Because I think you're going to need more than 5 points. I think you're going to need more than 5 points, right? Because every Tonga are going to batter Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to fancy beating the USA. Spain should beat Canada. Georgia, Romania have got worse consistently every year now, unfortunately. So I think you have to. I think if you want to qualify in the 3rd position, you have to beat that every team and get your bonus 5 points. But I wouldn't have Chile myself. Well, I'll let you give your 4, and I'll go through mine, man.
Chile, obviously, Georgia will do a number on Romania. That'll be that. Either Spain or Fiji, however that falls on that game, that will obviously be one of them 2 will go through in that group. I can't see Canada turning full circle in that period. I honestly think Wales may potentially finish 3rd in that group.
Oh my God, big call. Yeah.
They obviously.
Can you imagine?
I can't see them beating England unless there's a minor miracle. They'll beat Zimbabwe comfortably, or they'll get a bit of a rumble. Tonga will do a number on them potentially with the new players being. I think they'll be closer than they probably would like to think. And then Tonga should obviously beat Zimbabwe quite comfortably, which would potentially put them above them, in my opinion.
So I'm not far off you. I think the only one I would switch out is I'm probably going to switch out Chile, because only four of the teams that finished third go through, obviously. So 2 have got to miss out. Someone's going to get 6 points or something. I've got Spain. I think they can do enough. Depends how the games fall, right? Yeah. I don't want them to have to play Argentina and then play Fiji. No.
You want Argentina last. You want that as the last game.
Or as long as you get Canada before, so you can get those points on the board and you know what you need from that game. Yeah. If we don't give a shit about beating Argentina, but we just need a bonus point, fuck it. I don't think you're allowed to do this, but give Tanny Bay a bucket load of acid before the game, and just tell him to run. Everything. And we'll lose 90-36, but we'll get our 4 points. My worry is that they exhaust themselves out playing against Argentina, get really close but not enough tries. Do the same against Fiji, get really close and not enough tries and they're out. But I've got Spain going through. I've got Georgia going through. I think, okay, you may think they're going to get battered by Italy, but I think there's a bonus point in there for them. So I think it's 6 points. I think 6 points is what you're going to need. I've got Samoa being the other team that get enough. And then Tonga. But similar to you, I think Tonga could do it because, I mean, it's so hard with those Pacific nations about who's available. But when you look at the talent pool of lads they could pull in from the NRL, even if it's 3 or 4 lads, that would make a massive difference. And I don't think Chile and Uruguay are going to be able to get points outside of their pot 4 team. I think Australia and New Zealand will not be generous in getting enough tries for Chile to get that try bonus point. And I think,
I don't know.
I mean, Uruguay and Scotland, I can't see it. I can't see Uruguay doing it. I'd love to see it, obviously, but not at our expense.
Why have they done the World Cup draw now, this far out? I know that's how rugby do it, and obviously, but then you've got the FIFA World Cup draw being done on Friday, which is 6 months beforehand, based on actual current form, rather than the typical biased, we've made sure we got everyone qualified that we want to qualify, let's get them into a World Cup draw.
I think some of it comes back to next year they want the elite nations all playing each other. You know, it's the elite nations, they want their cake and to eat it too. Yeah. They want to be able to play each other all for money. Yeah. But what happens if they all play each other? Well, they start losing, right? And so what happens to that ranking? Well, it comes lower and lower and lower. And they're not going to go a year without playing good nations because they need the money. You know, they're all trapped in this circle now of, we need to make this much money. Why? Because we're spending way too much more than we can afford. Yeah. That's the reality. The game is living beyond its means and has done for a very long time, and should just spend less. There's only so much juice you can get out of this. But I would say that as a rugby league fan from the north of England, wouldn't I? Yeah. You know, just pay everyone £5, boys. You know, so I think that's it. They want it both ways. Yeah. They want to play all of each other, but if not, and again, the annoying thing about this nations thing now is, you know, this would have made perfect sense. I think this would have made perfect sense if they'd have done it 2 years out. Why? So that next November and July, nations like Spain or Georgia could get those tier 1 games. So Spain could have had an Italy in November as the 4th week of the game. That's the game that we get the lads back from France. Thank you. You know, Georgia could have had a game. And Fiji are kind of already in there, but the teams that are on that cusp could have got those legit games, and there's a reason to watch it. Yeah. But that's why they've done it. So I've got no sympathy for when, I don't know, you know, people complain about, you know, Ireland complain about getting the Scotland draw, or South Africa complain about they might get New Zealand this game. Like, you keep changing your tournaments to make sure you play each other all the time anyway for money. Yeah. So I really don't have any sympathy with you if it inconveniences you once every 4 years. So that's me being cynical.
That's it. If you're going to hang your hat on it, who's going to win it?
It's really hard to look past South Africa, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is amazing how many people have become rugby league fans in Ireland recently. You never would have thought that. Andy Farrell obviously being the coach, but now they don't want contested scrums. They're coming over to the dark side, Carl. I want to ask you a few more before obviously I let you go, because I've had you for an hour now, but you played in the UK, obviously you played in England, you were in Pompey, no?
Yeah, Portsmouth, yeah. Down Gosport, so just across the little water.
You probably know more about kind of championship level. If you had to, thinking about where you played, and then we'll finish at the World Cup, thinking about where you played, if you were to put Division on a tier in the UK, or in England, we should say, in England, where would you put it? Are we saying Championship, or is that just a bit too high at the moment? Or what clubs do you think might be able to go in the Championship?
It's kind of between the Championship and Nat 2, where obviously we've obviously got Nat 1, but there's probably some clubs that would do well in one bit. And if you had a full strength Division d'Honneur, you're probably closer to upper end of Nat 1, bottom end of the Championship. But in the current stability where most of the internationals are away, you're probably looking closer towards mid to lower Nat 1, some Nat 2 teams, because you've got Nat 2 teams that have got international players still rolling around in. So like down in Camborne, you've got Sam Matavesi rolling out as their DOR, playing week in, week out, rather than playing hooker, who's the hooker's, I believe the Navy hooker, plays for them as well. So he also plays that. He's playing flanker. His brother Joel Matavesi's playing at centre. You got the other Matavesi brother there as well, and they're all just carving it up in Nat 2. So I think the English game's got enough about it, but the Spanish model, I think, is probably at the minute probably lower end of Nat 1 because of the unavailability. If the internationals were there all season, you'd be there. I think any like Burgos, VRAC, potentially Cisneros on some days, depend on which Cisneros turns up.
Which one can be asked. They normally perform really well against the teams at the higher end of the table, and then when they're playing the lower end, they don't have it.
Exactly.
So, your prediction, mate, if you had to pick a World Cup winner, who are you going for? I'm gonna it's very hard to see the way the rules are set up currently, where you can get penalty after penalty in the scrum.
Yeah.
Who's beating that? Who's not even beating it? Who's surviving against it?
I think it'd have to be between. Obviously, if South Africa have a blip, it'd have to probably be between France and England, to be honest, would be the other two in current form.
Ooh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
France are France. France will blow up doing France things. They'll pick and choose if they want to win it. I think England have got enough depth, but it also depends on what England turns up, how we turn up, in what format. But I think apart from Spain's November internationals, England obviously had an absolute blinder. 4 from 4, could have easily blown up. Kind of a few months ago, would have probably lost them a lot more. But that's where it is. But I honestly think outside of that, Spain, I know the results don't show it, but I think they had an absolute barnstormer of a November international period. I think there's a lot more answers than there are questions out of what Spain produced out of that.
I think that's a great way. That's a great way of putting it. That we went in, we're like, oh, can we compete with these teams? Every team can say, oh, Fiji didn't have their best players. We can do the exact same for Spain.
Yeah.
The 6 or 7 of the lads in the top 14 weren't there.
Yeah.
And they're taking it to the end. In terms of what I like, which was a change, what would have concerned me is the way they played against Ireland, and that was a very experienced Ireland A team.
Yeah.
And they did get tonked.
Yeah.
That it was and it was not good to watch. It was a great day. Like off the field, they got it right. I think it looks good on TV.
The officiating was terrible. That was probably one of the worst officiating displays I've seen in a long time at international level. On both sides, don't get me wrong. I thought the official on the day was horrendous. Not that it would have stopped Ireland. Ireland looked phenomenal, but I think the gap wouldn't have been as wide. I think there was a lot of things that potentially a better level referee would have picked up. You could see why they got that job because of the amount of other bigger games that are on. That's how I viewed it from pitch side. Like watching some of the breakdown stuff, the amount of stuff that was missed. There was the absence of the TMO. I don't know if there was a TMO. There was whether he was just in his ear, but there was no screen. It was a pretty poor display. But not take anything. Ireland were phenomenal. Ireland could have gone through another gear. They were different gravy. But I think Spain wouldn't have been as widely. I don't think the gap would have been as wide if the officiating was of a better level.
It's not something I'd say I'd noticed against Ireland. I got frustrated with it against England with the constant TMO in the referees' bloody ear, you know. And it's a huge problem in rugby league as well.
Yeah.
Like every game talks about speeding up the game. But then you allow the referees to have 5 minutes in a frame by frame.
Yeah.
You know, and the other issue is games are finishing out in 2 hours. Like that's a lot of TV time now that, you know, you're not going to keep casuals by constantly doing that. In terms of the positive changes, the kicking from when they played Ireland to the last 2 games was absolutely night and day better.
Yeah.
You know, when they played Ireland, they were booting it away and not allowing themselves to compete for it. And Ireland were just running back with 15, 20 meters to run into. Like giving someone that much momentum, that's never going to end well for you. But then against England, okay, conditions helped because it was filthy, but they did the same against Fiji. I don't think a single kick went up from Tanny Bay when they were playing that last game. And against England as well, that you couldn't compete for it. And that made that game against Fiji so much more competitive because, I mean, Fiji scored a few of their tries from broken play.
Yeah.
But when Spain had them set up, you know, in that Pablo Bortha way, a lot more disciplined, but not going to be as open. Spain were on it. And I think what's really encouraging is Spain's set piece, their scrum. It's you know, when you see Joel Merkler, like the England lads, fair play to them. Like I spoke to a few of them when I was in Valladolid.
Yeah.
You know, weather wasn't great for them, but you know, as they were trying to G themselves up. You know, get in the face of Joel Merkler. There's a moment in the video where he just stands up,
I saw it.
laughs in their face, just laughs in their face. Who do you think you are? Gets back into the scrum. They get a penalty off it. No clapping from Joel, nothing. Just looks at them and smiles again. Do you know who I am?
Yeah.
I think that's the other positive thing for Spain. They've got so many players now who play at that top level that people talk about being overawed and being on a big occasion. Don't you think a top 14 final is a big occasion?
Yeah, exactly.
John Merkel has already won a few of those.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of the Spanish media is talking down Spain, and I get why, because they don't want to build up expectations. And it's about competing. But I think we're past that kind of charity point now. I think Spain, I hope, right? Of course I hope, but I look at the way they performed in terms of competing for the ball, a really strong set piece, which just gives you such confidence, right? If you know that you're going to be competitive in a scrum, if you know you've got lads who can carry it well and get you out of trouble, if you know you've got someone like Tanny Bay who can take off out of nowhere and maybe sneak you a try, then when you're looking around the field, I mean, you've played, you probably, if you've got a guy who you know is not very good, you probably try and overcompensate for him, right? You're probably going to try and do more to cover that lad, and that's where holes get made. Yeah. But you're looking around at this team, you know, you've got Alvaro Garcia on your left, you've got Joel Merkler on your right. You can trust that the lads next to you are going to do their job. What for you was, in terms of the performance, obviously, you were at the Ireland game, had your own illness. I'm assuming you watched the Fiji game on TV whilst you were nursing your haulers. For you in that Fiji game, because we're going to be playing them, what were your main takeaways, mate?
Just the way that we were able to spread the play, like the try that Chino scored in the corner, where he managed to, he just kept drifting out of the eyesight, and everyone could see it. Like I could see it a mile off. Tanny Boy saw it. Rather than just pushing it early, Tanny waited. It got a couple more, but we also run the risk of at the pick and go times, we potentially go one or two too many times. I get where we try to play that way because of the physicality, but that comes with experience at that level. Sometimes depending on the official, you'll go one or two too many times and you'll potentially hold on too long or etc. But to see that opportunity and be able to throw that pass across the line, that wouldn't have worked against any other team than Fiji. Because Fiji weren't expecting it because they'd have done it themselves. That's the sort of shit Fiji would do, and I think that. But I think the one bit for me was Tanny Boy went missing in the Ireland game because he was marked out of the game. He was controlled out of the game. Ireland were on his toe. Everything was trying to push him out. They were trying to get him rolled up. They literally shut him down. As soon as Nicholas Infer come on, we turned another gear, and Tanny's going to be targeted by a lot of these nations because he is so explosive. If you manage to find a way of shutting him out of the game, how does Spain then go forward?
Yeah, I mean, we should take the point that I don't want to keep qualifying it, but in that Ireland game, he didn't have those top 14 lads around him. But, so much does go through
in the Fiji
Tanny.
game. Didn't have the Fiji game. He didn't have.
That is true. That's a fair point, mate. Yeah, hold my hands up.
And he didn't have him in most of the
he ended
rugby.
Well, then.
Yeah, but he didn't have him in most of the Rugby Europe Championship last season either. So we can't base it off that one. But there will be teams that are able to manage him out of a game, and we've got to have another option. And
the fact that Fiji have played us means they know, is this the benefit or is this the negative, right? Fiji have had a good look now at
twice in 2
years.
Yeah.
Okay, you've got a year off, but maybe Tanny Bay doesn't start. That might be the thing. Who knows? Chino, as you said, who, I think I may have already mentioned it, but I did the interview with him and he said that when I asked him 2 weeks ago, are you thinking about getting into the Spanish team? You're back playing for Cisneros. Is that on your mind? Straight to my face, I'm not thinking about it.
He might not.
I'm just focused.
He might not think about it, but he ain't going to turn it down.
3 weeks later, you're bowling over Fiji's. Liar. Absolute liar, isn't he?
He's never going to turn it down. He might not think about it, but he's never turning it down.
And I'm delighted for him. He'd been injured for such a long time. There's so many stories like this of lads who either missed out on the last World Cup because of what happened. I mean, we had a whole generation of lads who qualified for 2 World Cups and didn't get to go. Tanny Bay's going to be, that might be it for him. Like after that World Cup, that's probably thanks for the memories.
Yeah.
So you want him to go out well. I'm really hopeful that the Fiji game just turns into an absolute tri-fest.
Yeah.
And we just agree. Okay, boys, we're both going to play open
just
rugby.
Just go for it.
It's going to be 60-40. Everyone takes their bonus point and we all go home happy. My fear, when Pablo played Fiji 2 years ago, the majority of Spain's points came off penalties.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But you're not going to get a bonus point for that. You can get a losing bonus point, but whereas this time, it's not like hell for leather, but Spain have got that punch,
Yeah. We've got different game plans. That's the difference. That's the difference. There's different game plans because I was there for the Fiji game last year when it literally got to the last 10 minutes again, 10, 15 minutes, and Fiji went through the gears. That's the problem with Spain at the minute. Spain are a 65, 70-minute team. We're not quite at the point of making that full 80. Against most clubs we are, or nations, but I'm also quite excited by the players that are coming through. Obviously, the under-18s have just won the Rugby Europe. So there's going to be some of these players there, like Lucas Gill. He's playing for Cal in Valencia. He's now part of the Iberians, so he's being blooded in. He's only 18-year-old lad, different gravy again. The only thing for me was with Chino. It sounds really harsh, but he didn't look physical enough for a winger for me. He got bounced off too many. He got too many tackles bounced against the likes of Fiji that are that physical monster. We're going to get the same in the game against Argentina. He's going to get exploited, and they twosed up on him so many times because they knew he's going to have to try and tackle one of them, but the other one's just going to walk past, and that was the only thing that. When you've got Alberto Comano that's playing in, he's over in France. He wasn't available for the last game, but he can play anywhere along the back three. He's a exceptionally good player and a great option to have. But Chino.
But this is the thing. It's like the competition, as you mentioned at the start. This is why it's to be really positive. Like the competition is there, and where's it going to be in 4 years? When all of those boys from the under 18s, they're 22, they're 23. I mean, we forget Joel Merkler, although he looks like a 50-year-old man who ate his younger brother, and that's why he's the size of two men. He's in his mid-20s.
Yeah.
Like, you've got a lot of these boys. Okay, Alvaro, the Jan Sabala, who is the captain on the call today, he'll probably make another World Cup. Like Alvaro Garcia is gonna make another World Cup.
Yeah.
So I don't want this to be like, oh, we're glad to be there. I'm not. I think if Spain don't qualify for the 16, it is a disappointment. Yeah, I'm happy to say that. I'm not. I don't want to be one of these people who, oh, what a shock. It shouldn't be a shock anymore. I don't think. And when we spoke to John, he was happy with the group. Yeah. Like the captain was happy because they're not thinking about a holiday. No. A lot of the Spanish press were like, oh, you could have played New Zealand, you could have played South Africa. They're not going for a holiday.
No.
These boys are thinking about qualifying. And that's kind of where Spanish rugby is now.
No, it's good. The only thing that really worries me is who's our fullback going to be. Obviously, we've had John Vessel-Bells come back out of retirement. That was a very short-lived retirement, maybe a panic situation that we realise we actually haven't got a fullback to call upon. Richardi looks great at 10, but not at fullback. That's the only position that really worries me, and hopefully will develop over the next year or two. That's my only standout position. I think the rest of it, we got tons of depth. And Vessel-Bell's quality, don't get me wrong, but you can't rely on one player that's retired once, probably going to his last bit. Where's the future in that position go?
And also, the last thing we want World Rugby to know is that we still have a South African in our team because we're not Scotland. So if you're listening, World Rugby, John Vessel-Bell is actually from Andalusia. That this is fake news. Yeah. He's not actually South African. Please do not kick us out of another tournament. Yes, I agree. And there were a few times definitely on your point about being a 70-minute team. When I was in that press conference after they lost to England in the last minute and they conceded 2 tries in 6 minutes, Pablo, I've never seen him so dejected. I think if he had his time back, he would have left Merkler and Garcia on, who came off in the last 10 minutes. Yeah. And that would have been your statement win. So there's definitely an element of, yes, there's depth, but there are levels to the caliber of player coming in and out. Fullback, maybe you pinch someone from sevens. What's the most concern about fullback for you? Because, as someone who normally watches in the UK or England anyway, the kind of, I'm not saying fullback in rugby league and rugby union is a transferable skill. There's more in common, but whereas in rugby league it's all about making meters from fullback. A fullback in rugby union seems to be much more, you've got just a defensive, he's going to take every high ball. Defense, we care way more about, paradoxically, rugby league's all about defense, right? But it seems that in rugby union, if there's one position that you've got to be able to take the high ball.
Yeah.
And you prioritize defense over attack.
Yeah.
Feels like the fullback position.
But again, that's what worries me is that back three. Obviously, you've got Carmona that can play any position across those back three. Fullback's probably not his best position, but he can play there. Vesselbell, not the tallest, but great under the high ball when it goes his way. Clearance kicks, brilliant. Defensively, and then you've got Chino on the other side as well, in a similar stature. That's my only concern from me being from coaching, playing.
Maybe it's a bit small.
It's too small, in my opinion, to have two of those players. And that back three should literally work like an arc. They should be able to drop in and if you're caught on that other side and you've got Vesselbell and Chino against a likes of say we get to England, you've got Freddie Stewart or other players coming that are obviously a sizable stature, like even Iskro or Santi Carreras coming through in that position against those two, I'd be quite concerned.
Yeah. There's kind of a thing for motorsport which I don't really watch a lot of, but they talk about who are you racing, if they're on a different strategy, changing tyres, whatnot. If we're playing England at the World Cup, I could play whoever you want.
Yeah.
Play dwarves, play 4-foot dwarves who run like pacemen, because you've had the greatest World Cup of all time.
Yeah.
And everyone's going to be talking about you. I'm more interested in the bonus point against Fiji. So I think it's a different conversation maybe if you get to the 16 or games against Canada where it's just about the win.
Yeah.
But if you're targeting a game where you're going to get that bonus point, Fiji are going to play open. You hope. Do they know another way to play? Probably not. So you'd hope they keep it open. But if they keep it open, that's going to give you chances. Losing by 40 points but getting a bonus point is the priority. So for me, I would sacrifice for that one game. I'd sacrifice the defensive frailty. I'd happily trade, him giving up 3 tries if he can get us 2.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the main thing for me. But yeah, there's plenty to be excited about. I think.
And as I said, there's more answers than there were questions out of it. And I honestly think we probably had a great November internationals. We've got a great draw in front of us, a growing product, a growing development model. And there's a reason why we sit here and wax lyrical about the Spanish game from being inside it, because it is something. It is better than some of the products out there. It's not the finished article, but when Spain go for something, they don't settle for bullshit, do they? They don't they go for the top. You look at the Spanish football, you look at everything else they go for, they make a proper statement. And once this is bought into by the mainstream, by the most people within Spain, this game here may know no limits. But we just got to get through that barrier.
A final point for me, and then I'm going to bugger off to bed myself, to bring it back, every time that Spain have been allowed to compete openly, they've always gone to the next level.
Yeah.
They've always gone to the next level. Where it's the under-20 championship that was set up in a playoff to basically protect teams like Scotland who couldn't get relegated. And when Spain had promotion relegation, they got in. So they're in there. Under 18s now, they're beating Georgia. The Sevens, when that program started, last year, they were the runners-up on the circuit. So every time that Spain gets an opportunity, it tends to take it. And we've just got to hope that in 2 years' time, Spain take this opportunity.
I completely agree. I think it's probably the perfect note to leave that on, Ed, and really appreciate your time. And for everyone that's joined us, obviously we've got everything on Rugby TTL. This is going to be shared on YouTube. We'll be able to share Ed's channel. You're predominantly on X under Senor Huevo. Are you on any other channels?
Yeah, Senor Huevo, SNR Huevo. You'll find it. We'll put it all in the links.
Yeah.
But if any of you suffered through an hour and 25 minutes of my face, well, you're the real heroes, guys. Yeah. So Thanks for your time as well, Carl.
No, thank you. And hopefully we can get a few more of these in this season. And for everyone that wants to keep abreast of everything we do, we're on Instagram, all the other platforms. We'll share everything that Ed does as well. And I hope you enjoy everything we do. And we'll see you on another episode soon. Cheers.